An entire village disappears in a single night. The episode opens on a collapsed buildings and bodies left in the streets. There is no build-up, just aftermath. Stark stands alone in church, praying. When Genau asks if he's praying, Stark answers yes. Then he adds quietly, the same thing happened to his village. The episode doesn't linger, it doesn't explain, it just shows what's left behind. And then, the episode before this spends 3 months opening a door for liquor. In episode 5, Frieren sits in a tavern with Stark and Fern. Stark overhears talk of bowshaft, a rare liquor sealed behind a cave door. They reunite with Faz, a dwarf Frieren hasn't seen in 80 years. For him, it's been nearly a century. For her, just 8 decades. Faz asks for help opening the sealed door. The process will take 3 months. There's no strategic reason to do it, no larger objective, no urgency. Frieren initially declines. Stark and Fern argue that they should help anyway. She's surprised. Normally, they would be the first to call something like this a waste of time. Instead, they insist. On the surface, this episode looks like a detour, a side quest about alcohol. No combat, no major stakes, no dramatic turning point, just logistics. So why does the episode spend 3 months on something that doesn't matter? The key moment in this episode isn't the mine. It isn't the death. It's the refusal. When Faz asks for help opening the sealed door, Frieren says no. 3 months is too long. There is no urgency, no strategic reason to stay. And she's right. There is no larger objective tied to the liquor, no looming threat, no obligation forcing their hand. The logical choice would be to move on, but Stark and Fern interrupts. They argue that they should help anyway, and that's where the episode shifts. Frieren pauses. She points out that normally they would be the first to stop her from taking on something like this. In the past, they would have called it a waste of time, but they don't. They insist. That insistence matters more than the liquor, because this isn't about bowshaft. It's about who decides how time is spent. Earlier in the series, Frieren treated time casually. Decades passed without weight, long stretches of her life slid by without urgency or reflection. Now, Stark and Fern are the ones choosing to stay, not because the outcome is important, but because the time itself is shared. And that's the first answer to our question. The episode doesn't waste time. It shows someone choosing how to spend it. Frieren's decision in this episode isn't impulsive. It echoes a conversation she once had with Heiter. They were talking about liquor, about the possibility of spending a long time opening something, only to find out it wasn't very good. Frieren asked what would happen if they put in the effort, waited, committed to it, and the result was disappointing. Wouldn't that mean the time was wasted? Heiter's answer was simple. Even if the liquor was bad, the time wouldn't be wasted, because they would have spent it together. That's the distinction episode 5 returns to. When Faz asks for help opening the sealed door, Frieren already suspects the bow shafts might not live up to the legend. Or well, she knows, right? She knows from experience that sometimes the result isn't the point. The real risk isn't bad liquor, it's believing that time only matters if the outcome justifies it. Stark and Fern insist on helping anyway, and in that moment, Frieren recognizes something familiar. They aren't calculating whether it's worth it, they are choosing to stay. The episode reinforces that choice by stripping away urgency. There is no looming threat, no ticking clock, even the death subplot resolves quietly. Frieren works in the mine. She pays what she owes, time passes without spectacle, nothing dramatic happens, and that absence is deliberate. Episode 5 commits to the ordinary. It lingers in small actions. Sitting, waiting, working, eating. Because the point isn't the liquor behind the door, it's the time spent opening it. Earlier in the series, Frieren struggled to understand how limited human time is. Now the shift is subtle. She doesn't measure time by whether it leads to something impressive, she measures it by whether it's shared. The 3 months aren't meaningful because the reward is great, they are meaningful because they are chosen, and because no matter what's behind that door, they'll experience it together. After agreeing to help Faz, the episode introduces a second obstacle, Frieren's death resurfaces. Many years ago, she borrowed a large sum of money from the local trading authority and never repaid it. When she arrives, she is detained. It would be easy for this to become the episode's dramatic escalation, a confrontation, a chase, a clever solution. Instead, the episode does something quieter. Frieren works. She goes into the mine and extracts silver to repay what she owes. There is no spectacle in this sequence, no tension built around whether she'll escape or outsmart anyone. The problem isn't treated as urgent, it's procedural. Time passes, the debt is cleared, she walks back out. Even Stark and Fern, who appear worried outside, aren't reacting to a crisis. They're preparing for a possibility, ready to act if necessary. But the episode never turns that preparation into action. Nothing explodes, no one fights, no dramatic music swells to mark victory. The solution is simple because the episode isn't interested in escalation, it's interested in duration. By refusing urgency, first with the liquor, then with the debt, the episode reinforces its central idea. Not every stretch of time needs to justify itself through importance. Sometimes time is simply spent, and sometimes that's enough. And then episode 6 begins. Not with build-up, not with transition, with aftermath. The village is gone, homes are destroyed, bodies lie in the streets. Whatever happened here is already over. Genau and Method investigate the damage. They analyze the blade marks, trying to understand what kind of monster could have done this. Frieren, Stark and Fern arrive. There's no detour here, no 3-month commitment, no procedural waiting. Time wasn't chosen, it was taken. Stark kneels in a church and prays. When Genau asks if he's praying, Stark says yes. Then he adds that the same thing happened to his village. That line matters, because it quietly connects this massacre to something personal. In episode 5, the characters chose to stay for something trivial. In episode 6, an entire community never had that choice. Placed back to back, the contrast reframes what came before. The liquor wasn't important, the death wasn't important, but the time was intentional. Episode 5 shows time being spent, and episode 6 shows time being erased. That's why the quiet episode isn't empty, it's defining what can be lost. In conclusion, episode 5 doesn't move the plot forward. It doesn't introduce a new villain, it doesn't escalate the stakes, it doesn't resolve a major conflict. It spends 3 months opening a door for liquor, and that choice feels unnecessary. Until episode 6 reminds us what unnecessary time looks like when it's gone. The village doesn't get 3 months. Stark's childhood village didn't get 3 months. They didn't choose how their time ended. That's the difference. Episode 5 isn't asking whether something is important enough to justify time, it's asking who gets to decide how time is spent. Frieren says yes to something trivial, not because it matters, but because she can choose it, and sometimes that's the only thing that makes time meaningful. If you enjoy structured breakdowns like this, consider subscribing, and if you saw something different in these episodes, I would be interested to hear your interpretation, so please leave a comment and your thoughts. You are free to disagree or agree. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.